Oh, hey there. Welcome into another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. On this week's program, a homicide and an arson in a church, both downtown, have residents and business owners thinking crime is getting worse in the core, that more needs to be done to curb it. But is it getting worse, or is perception everything? Might be in this case. We have a chat with Police Chief Rich Johnston. An Innisfil man has published his first novel aimed at what he believes is an underserved age group, preteen and teen boys. And it was an exciting week for the Barrie Colts. We take a look back as the team gears up for the playoffs. But first, there's concern on many fronts with the province moving to private clinics to provide some health services. Will there be additional charges? Will there be upselling? Is this move really necessary? The newly formed Ontario Health Coalition doesn't think so. Barrie 360's Ian McLennan is in studio with co-chair of the Simcoe County chapter, Anissa Carrascal.
First off, tell me about the Simcoe County Health Coalition. When was it formed? Or why was it formed?
Very recently. There's been quite a lot of movement in healthcare right now, as you probably know. There's an organization that is called the Ontario Health Coalition, and it's basically a network of over 500 grassroots community organizations, and they represent virtually all Ontario. Basically, we formed a Simcoe County Health Coalition because there was quite a lot of interest on improving and preserving our public health system here in this area. Just to kind of give you the big idea, the Simcoe County Health Coalition and the Ontario Health Coalition were non-profit, non-partisan. It's all grassroots and community based, and we basically do activism. And our mandate is literally to improve and protect our public healthcare system. We're very concerned with the current government's efforts to privatize hospital services like surgical.
Are you in the belief that this step of moving certain procedures, cataract, hip and knee, to for-profit clinics is a stepping stone to a wider for-profit system?
Yes, we do.
Where do you get that fear factor from?
There's data to support that because of the way that it has been handled. For example, just to give you an example with surgeries specifically. So I don't know if many people in Ontario understand, but most of the surgical rooms in Ontario right now are working only from like about 8 a.m. in the morning until 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So they have plenty of space and room to do more surgeries in the hospitals right now. There's no need to actually privatize those services.
Why aren't they being utilized? And is it due to staffing shortages?
It is definitely an issue with the staffing shortages, and it's an issue of underfunding. There has been a severe underfunding of the hospitals in Ontario. Ontario is the province that is spending less money on their hospitals, and it has cut the most beds in the last few years. And it's not an issue with only this government, but it has been a chronic issue from several governments in the past. And so what we're actually asking or advocating for is to fix our system, not sell it. Basically, that's what we want.
Now, the government has made this call. Do you believe the hospitals, the Ontario Hospital Association, in a broader term, backs what the Ford government is doing? Are they players in this too? They are in some capacity. Where do you see them fitting in?
Well, most of the, just to kind of give you the idea, we, as an organization, I'm a nurse. I'm a nurse myself. In the Ontario Health Coalition, there's plenty of nurses, doctors, medical technicians, diagnostic technicians. We have plenty of people representing the healthcare force in itself. We also have plenty of doctors backing us up. Most of the medical associations have come up to not necessarily criticize, but to request more information from the government in regards of these privatization plans.
And I will ask, people will say, well, I already get my blood work done at a private lab. I get an endoscopy, colonoscopy done at a for-profit clinic. What's the worry?
The worry is that the access to the services is not the same. For example, let's say that they manage to get all the surgeries out of the hospitals right now. let's say that we move all the surgeries, or the surgeries that are the bulk of the surgeries, like hernia surgeries, cataract surgeries, all those surgeries, out of hospitals. What happens is that there's going to be hubs, private clinics, but they're only going to be in certain parts of Ontario. So you're going to have to travel farther in order to get your surgery. You're going to have to pay. We have evidence, plenty of evidence, that private clinics that have been doing cataract surgeries have been overcharging, not only upselling, but also charging services they shouldn't be charging. Like we have a whole file of people that are bringing us the stories of how much they are actually paying.
You have some
services.
of those stories on a website that people can see for themselves? Yeah.
If people want to see those stories, they can go to the website of the Ontario Health Coalition. You just search it on Google, like Ontario Health Coalition. And there's plenty of evidence to see how much people are actually paying already out of pocket in the private clinics. It is happening right now. So in the case of laboratory testing or let's say COVID testing, things that are happening in certain private settings, right now there's no charge for the clients, but there is actually. For COVID testing right now, like if you want to do a COVID testing, you actually have to pay right now. You cannot go to like, as in, there are certain settings in which you can do it, but if you wanted to do it like it's faster or to go out, you can pay it. But what about the people that cannot pay those services? So what we're trying to do is to make sure that healthcare in Canada follows the mandate that we all want to as Canadians, and that we're very proud of healthcare for everybody. That's basically it. Healthcare for all.
Again, for more information, check the Simcoe County Health Coalition Facebook group or the Ontario Health Coalition website at ontariohealthcoalition.ca. The Barrie Colts got the job done again last week and did it in some creative ways. Our Will Conkin takes a look back with Colts broadcaster and writer Gene Pereira.
The Colts started last week with a tough 7-5 loss to Hamilton, but bounced back with the 3-2 win over Mississauga and beat Owen Sound 6-3. The thing I'm interested in, though, is the game winner against Mississauga. Jacob Frasca hit a loose puck with his skate, got a goal, but there was a lengthy video review on the play. Gene, take us through what happened.
Yeah, obviously they had a tough loss to Hamilton, where they weren't very good. In Mississauga, it was a 2-2 game in the third period, and early in the third, it was just one of those games where maybe Barrie wasn't the strongest up through the first two periods, but a puck got loose in the crease area, and Frasca went to kind of poke at it, missed it, and the puck ended up going. He kind of, as he strided forward, he actually kicked the puck and it went in the net. And there was a lengthy review, and I think the Colts are probably fortunate maybe that they got that one. I was surprised with the ruling that it did stand, but I don't know. I didn't really see on the replay if it made contact on its way to the net with anybody else. I thought it kind of went directly into the net, but it's just one of those situations that Frasca was going for the puck, and as he strided forward with his left skate, he hit the puck and it slid into the net. So a fortunate call for the Barrie Colts there, but as the goal ends up standing. But the Colts played really well after that. They really limited Mississauga, to their chances. They did hit two posts, the Steelheads did, but Barrie found a way to hang on there.
And then Gene as well, maybe touch on Evan Vierling's play of recent. He's been on a run.
Yeah, I mean, Evan's just, arguably, his name's right there with anybody who's been the best player in the second half of the season, at the least. He's just been very dominant, and again, another big 5-point night, 5-point game against Owen Sound, that 6-3 win on Sunday afternoon, and Evan had his second hat-trick of the season, and added 2 assists. And, this is a player that, again, you watch. He's such a skilled playmaker, but, he's starting to do all these other things that make him a complete player, and he understands that, obviously drafted by the New York Rangers, who decided not to sign him, and as an unsigned free agent now, he's playing for a pro deal. And, it's almost like, someone's got to put a pro deal for this kid to sign. He's just been that good. And, you could see the effort to become a complete player. But, again, his offensive skills, his ability to, kind of set up his teammates, he just makes everybody around him that much better. And he was outstanding on Sunday. And, again, he's the one that's kind of, coming up big. Him and Ethan Cardwell have played together all season, 2 over-age forwards. Cardwell as well in the same situation, albeit a little bit different in that he has been drafted by San Jose. He belongs to the Sharks organization, and he has until the end of the year to the end of the playoffs there to sign a pro deal. So both of them looking for pro contracts, both of them having big years, and they're doing it together. And they've led Barrie's offense all year, but especially when you look at this team's turnaround, their defensive play has certainly probably been the biggest factor. Their ability to keep the play without the puck, and Evan Veerling and Cardwell, 2 guys who are known for their offense. They've been a big part of that because they're veterans and they're kind of leading the way in that play without the puck, and setting good examples for their younger teammates.
And then coming up for the Colts, it's a little bit of a lighter week. They only have 2 home games, London on Thursday and Sudbury for Saturday. Hopefully they don't take this stretch for granted. Rich.
Obviously the Thursday night game is always London nights anytime they're in town, and the kind of the Darth Vader of the Ontario Hockey League, always a team that, is right up at the top of the standings. And once again, London's one of the best teams in the Ontario Hockey League, and they always get a ton of attention there in London, and, a really good test for Barrie, obviously. You want to see how you do against the other top teams in the league, and, as Marty Williams has said, to be the best, you have to beat the best. And, London really sets a good example on Thursday night. I expect that rink to be jammed. And, you can see it in the players, too. They know, the type of game it is and the message that they're trying to send. And I think it's a situation where both these teams are going to be pumped up. And, obviously both fighting, Barrie trying to catch North Bay for the Central Division title, and London trying to hold off Windsor for top spot in the Western Conference and home ice throughout that. So, a lot at stake here as we head into this stretch drive, and I think it's just going to be a fun game to watch from 2 very good hockey teams.
Well, very much looking forward to the game on Thursday. Always a pleasure, Gene. Till next time.
Thanks, Will.
What Barrie's Talking About is a weekly podcast featuring the best Barrie has to offer and more. We've covered a lot of ground since we began in mid-July, learned how artificial intelligence is being used to keep geese from leaving their calling card on waterfront properties, got up close and personal with Danny Wagner, drummer for Greta Van Fleet, and looked at some of the pros and cons of owning an electric vehicle. You can get caught up and make it easy to keep up in the future by subscribing to What Barrie's Talking About through any podcast distributor. Still to come on What Barrie's Talking About, an Innisfil author trying to keep male teens reading with his first novel, and Police Chief Johnston says we need to keep recent events downtown in perspective. Now this.
Our community rocks.
It's a well-known fact blood transfusion saves lives. It's also a well-known fact that the world relies on voluntary unpaid donations to fill the need for blood. The need for blood never ends. Canadian Blood Services in Barrie is calling on you to help save a life. Please consider donating today. Appointments are mandatory and must be booked in advance. Book today at blood.ca through the Give Blood app or by calling 1-888-2-DONATE.
Our community rocks on Barrie's Rock Station. Rock 95.
This is What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Many of us are brought up being read to at a young age and are encouraged to continue reading on our own as we grow older. But it doesn't always happen that way, especially for young males. Innisfil's Jim Hepburn hoping to change that with his first novel aimed at that group. It's called Hunted by Fire. He flipped through the pages with Barrie 360's MJ.
It's a YA fantasy, so kind of swords and horses sort of an idea. And it's about a young boy who grows up, and he's in a world ruled by the dragon gods. And they're all powerful, and they're tyrannical, and they're brutal, and he's kind of growing up wondering if there's something wrong with the way that things are. I think that's He thinks that maybe something isn't right. But he's surrounded by teachers and townsfolk and parents who don't quite think the same as him, that they're used to the old way of thinking, they're used to the way that things are. And so he's got to struggle to hide his beliefs but still find his place in the world. So for him, he's not combat trained like some of his friends are, though he'd love to be. And he's not charismatic so much either. But he is very smart and resourceful. He's inventive, and he has a knack for science and engineering and in creating and inventing. And so coming up in his hometown is a competition held by these dragon gods and their followers every year, where they go and they determine the most promising and the smartest young people from amongst the populace. And he wants to enter, he wants to go in it, not only to prove himself, but to also hopefully find that place in the world he's been searching for and show everybody what he's capable of. But unbeknownst to him, some things are about to take place, and he'll be pushed out into the world, for lack of a better term. And out there it's dangerous, and he's got to get gritty, and he's got to be resourceful, and if he's going to survive long enough to make it back to his loved ones.
Okay. So is it sort of highlighting, I guess, how important it is to not just to have, the muscles and the brawn and stuff like that, but to have the brains? When
I was writing the book, right now out there doesn't seem to be a whole lot for young men. If you walk into a chapters and look at the shelves, it's hard for young men to find books that they really like. And the ones that you do find, that parents might find for their kids too, there's a lot of protagonists who rely on physical strength or combat prowess, and the whole story seems to be centered on that kind of theme. And there's a reason for that, because it's exciting, and young boys and young girls too are attracted to that idea, and it's that conflict that makes stories exciting. But when I was making this book, when I was writing it, I really wanted to focus on a protagonist who had to struggle a bit more to overcome his problems with his mind, because when you're out there in the world, very few of our problems are physical. Most of them are mental. You got to struggle and persuade and be strategic and be diplomatic and work your way around the world that way to kind of get what you want and to progress. So I thought it would be a great idea to show a protagonist who could do that in a more realistic way.
And so what age is your novel geared towards? You said like young adults. We're looking at 12, 16 sort of age.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So probably somewhere between 13 and 17 is probably the best range.
Is this a series, or is it your first of many, or your first one and done, or how's that working?
Yeah, no, it's a series for sure. I'm writing the second one right now, so I'm more than halfway on that one. And hopefully it'll be a big series for many books to come that somebody can really sink into if they like to read.
Why did you start writing? Like, what was I know you had like some inspiration, but what was sort of like the final clincher that sort of got you there?
When I was younger, I was a big reader. I wasn't the most social kid in the world. I loved reading anything, and I would devour books that were years ahead of me in a way. And I know there's lots of young people out there like that now who do that. And I found the same struggle, and my parents did too, of trying to find books just to keep me going, I guess, in a way. I would get some kind of new book, like the latest Harry Potter book or the latest Percy Jackson book, and I'd beat through it in 2 days. So there comes to be a point where when you're older, you'd like to find a way to contribute back in some way that you think would be meaningful. And so for me, I really wanted to help fill that gap and help hopefully make something that a young person could enjoy and help feed their fire for reading.
Yeah. You said a lot of kids are like that now. Like, personally, my son is one of those.
Really?
I'll get excited and I'll find a book that I think he'll like and I'll buy it for him, or go to the library and I'm like, here. And then a day later he's like, done. And I'm like, well, okay. It usually takes me at least 3 weeks to get through a novel. So, so that's great. So when did you release it, and how is reception going so far?
Yeah, so released it back at the beginning of October. It's been great so far. I've had a lot of positive feedback from anybody who's read it. I've had a lot of friends, and now I'm at the stage where friends of friends have read it, and friends of their friends have read it, and they give me feedback from their kids and their sons or daughters who have read it, so it's awesome.
And where can people pick it up?
They can pick it up online at Amazon. There's also a store here in Barrie called the Barrie Book Inn that stocks it, and it's also stocked right now in Aurelia at Manticore Books. Is the closest places to get it.
Calls are getting loud again for a larger police presence downtown, for the city to take steps to make the core safer after a man was killed and a church was torched in recent weeks. Are things getting worse? What more can be done if it is? Our Ian McLennan put those questions to Police Chief Rich Johnston.
So, Chief, we had a couple of incidents, and they were almost back-to-back with arson, one, of course, affecting a church. We had a homicide, so close back-to-back that has reignited debate about the downtown and safety and what have you from both residents and some merchants, too. So a resident came up to you and said, Chief, the downtown's really not safe. How would you respond to that person?
It's an excellent question, but it's a little more complex than, and I would ask that citizen or business owner, do you know it's unsafe or do you feel it's unsafe? And I think the answer I would get back, and I wouldn't suggest that I know someone's mind, but they feel it's unsafe. And that's an important distinction. But it doesn't change what we do know about the downtown. But so I'm crystal clear on this. Since 2018, we've seen a decline in the most harmful crime in the downtown. And that is not a trivial amount. It's upwards of 40%. Now, it is important that point is that the crime harm, and that's the weight attached. Not all crime is equal. So crime is still occurring in the downtown, yes, like anywhere else in our city. But the amount of crime that happens year over year in that location as we map it out, the most harmful types of crime, they've been reduced. And that's an important factor as a public safety organization. We're not taking, it's not that we did that, but we play a role in helping to reduce crime. And our presence, and we're aware of that, can have that effect, as well as some of our strategies across the city. That's one thing, but people's perception of how safe it is a completely other. So I'm cognizant of that, and we're working with the BIA in terms of, how can we better respond, and how do we alter not simply the narrative, but how do we alter people's feelings of safety? And we have some innovative solutions that we're looking at.
And maybe some of those solutions are able to disclose, or what's currently being done in terms of visibility downtown? Because obviously you can't have a cop on every corner 24 hours a day downtown.
And that's an interesting point. So the desire to have a police officer on every corner, obviously cost ineffective, inefficient, but also is it really safer in that some people actually feel a little more unsafe if the police are there, because generally the police are there when something goes wrong. So it's a double-edged sword, certainly. So, and I no problem sharing some of the what we do know from the research that does work. And I know the BIA is working hard at it in terms of I think they're exploring improved lighting, which the research is quite strong on in terms of both reducing crime and improving perceptions of safety. From a police perspective, the strategy is called problem-oriented policing. There's also social disorder is what we experience in the downtown, not necessarily high crime rates, but social disorder does occur at an elevated rate in the downtown. That is what we're looking at exploring. And again, the research is quite supportive insofar as a community outreach type approach with social disorder seems to have the greatest effect in reducing it, as well as crime. So we're looking at our community engagement outreach officers and looking at, is there a way to perhaps explore that downtown focus a little more with some of them. So it's, to alter that perception of how safe do I feel, and to improve that, because we're cognizant that we want our community to feel safe in the downtown, and it's certainly a hub of all of our cultural activities in a number of ways, but certainly recognizing that the city center belongs to everyone.
And when you say social disorder, what do you mean by that?
So social disorder are those, they're not crimes, and that could be as broad a spectrum as you can imagine. That could be noise, what some may view as suspicious people or unknown individuals causing them to feel unsafe. And that is as vague as it sounds, because someone might not be doing anything wrong, but someone doesn't, they see an individual that causes them to feel unsafe. And I mean, there's a whole host of factors to that. We recognize that the downtown certainly has a number of our disadvantaged population, and the reality is, and I've said it before, it's not illegal to be homeless. It's not. But for some people, they feel uncomfortable seeing that, or there's a feelings of feeling unsafe, or some of the behaviors that go along with some individuals were suffering some mental health issues.
It would be fair to say, Chief, not just a police issue here, it's a societal issue too, that there are things that are gaps maybe in a system that allow this to happen.
There are societal gaps, and they absolutely agree with the fact that these occur in a society, and certainly not one organization is going to be able to solve it. B, are there any simple answers? These are complex social problems at a societal level, and no one agency is equipped in any way, shape, or form to resolve them.
Now, Chief, you do have, of course, for a long time, an office at the Barrie bus terminal. In terms of also visibility, so-called walking the beat, how often do your officers get to do that? And is it, a nighttime thing, a daytime, or are they on bikes, on foot? What?
So we do have our community engagement team, and they're attached to our community safety and well-being team. And so they're out and about across the city, in the downtown as well. You might see them with their bright green shirts, and the idea is to be seen. They're on foot. They can be on bikes. They're in cars. And everything you just said, to be purposely visible and engaging with all members of our community, putting them in touch with services for some of the more disadvantaged. And again, we're well aware of the research about officers on bikes and how humanizing that is. The community sees us as people versus, just driving by in a car, and I think that's incredibly important. And so we're looking at ways to increase our visibility. And obviously, we live in Barrie. It's a little more challenging to wheel around on a bike in, a foot deep of snow. But certainly, as the weather changes, you'll see more officers on bikes as the climate dictates.
And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian, MJ, and Will for their input, to Matt Ladder for his technical wizardry, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About, rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Facebook and Twitter at Barrie360 and on our website, Barrie360.com. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.